Hi, students, and welcome to today's lesson. I'm Ms. Bushnell. Today we will explore the question, what do we observe during a solar eclipse? Are you ready? Grab your pencil and your science journal and let's get started. In our last two lessons, we observed changes in light during a solar eclipse, and we investigated changes in temperature when sunlight is blocked. Remember, people observe changes in light and can feel changes in temperature during a solar eclipse. But what do you think a solar eclipse might sound like? Do you think we can hear sounds from space? No, we cannot hear any sounds from the sun or space because sound cannot travel through space. This photograph shows a scientist installing sound recording equipment at Velez Caldera National Preserve. The National Park Service collects sound recordings throughout the year at parks across the United States. During the 2017 solar eclipse, scientists around the world recorded sounds before, during, and after the eclipse. But wait, if we can't hear sounds from space, why do you think scientists record sounds during an eclipse? Do you think they listen for sounds on Earth? Maybe they listen to animals making sounds during an eclipse. Today, we will investigate what kind of sounds scientists might hear on Earth during an eclipse as we continue to explore the question, what do we observe during a solar eclipse? Let's listen to two different sound recordings. Listen closely as I play each recording, and think about what you notice about the two recordings. Here is the first recording. And here is the second recording. How are the two sound recordings similar? Did you hear animal sounds in both recordings? I did too. How are the two sound recordings different? I think different animals were making sounds in each recording. In the first recording, I heard birds chirping and insects buzzing, but in the second recording, I heard crickets chirping and owls hooting. The two sound recordings do include the sounds of different animals. The first recording included the sounds of bees and songbirds. Bees and songbirds are animals that can usually be heard during the daytime, but the second sound recording includes the sounds of animals that are active at nighttime, such as crickets and owls. Like people, animals have patterns of behavior that line up with day and night cycles. Some animals are active during the day and rest or sleep at night. Other animals sleep during the day and are active throughout the night. This is a list of daytime animals: the bee, the songbird, and the cicada. This is a list of nighttime animals: the frog, the cricket, and the owl. These lists show examples of animals that are common throughout the United States. The daytime animals are active and make sounds during the day. The nighttime animals are active and make sounds at night. Consider what you have learned about solar eclipses so far. What kinds of animal sounds do you think we might hear during a solar eclipse? We know that solar eclipses happen during the day. So maybe you think we would hear daytime animals. But we also know that the sky gets dark during a solar eclipse. So maybe you think we would hear nighttime animals. I think we need to gather more information before we can answer this question. Let's read some observations made by people around the world during a solar eclipse. Songbirds stop singing. Frogs call out. Bees stop buzzing and return to their hives. Cicadas stop chirping. Owls begin to hoot. Crickets chirp. Interesting. So which animals are quiet during a solar eclipse? Name the animals that are quiet. Animals that are quiet during a solar eclipse include songbirds, bees, and cicadas. Which animals make sounds during a solar eclipse? Name the animals that make sounds. Animals that make sounds during a solar eclipse include frogs, owls, and crickets. Let's compare these observations to our list of daytime and nighttime animals. What do you notice? The animals that make sounds during a solar eclipse are the same animals that are active at night. But the daytime animals are quiet during an eclipse. Why do you think this might occur? Well, during an eclipse, it gets darker and cooler outside. This change is similar to the change that happens as day becomes night. When this change happens during an eclipse, the daytime animals stop making noises, and the nighttime animals start making noises. Some animals change their behavior based on changes in light energy and thermal energy from the sun, but scientists are still investigating how different animals and plants are affected by a solar eclipse. Did you know that sound is another form of energy? When objects vibrate, they make sounds, and people hear sounds when their eardrums vibrate. So we have now observed light energy, thermal energy, and sound energy, as we have explored what we can see, feel, and hear during a solar eclipse. When we listen to the recordings of animal sounds, we realize that some animals make sounds during the day, and some animals make sounds at night. But why do you think the animals we listen to make those sounds? Do you think animals make sounds to communicate with each other? Yes, sound is a useful tool that animals can use to communicate. What role does sound play in your life? Let's look at some photographs that show people using sound energy in their everyday lives. Which of these pictures shows sound energy being used? Use your finger to circle the pictures that show people using sound energy. Did you circle this picture? Yes, this picture shows a boy listening to sound through headphones. What other pictures did you circle? I circled these two pictures. This picture shows a woman having a conversation on a phone, and this picture shows a girl playing the flute. All three of these pictures show people using sound energy. What is one example of sound in your everyday life? Your first task after this lesson will be to answer this question. Should we add any information about sound energy to our eclipse model? The eclipse itself does not make any sound, but the sounds that animals make change during an eclipse. How can we add our observations about changes in animals' behavior to our model? I have an idea. Let's add the animal sounds we might hear before, during, and after an eclipse. What animal sounds would we hear before an eclipse? We would hear daytime animals, such as bees and songbirds, making sounds. So let's add speech bubbles and write buzz, tweet to represent daytime animals making sounds. What animal sounds would we hear during an eclipse? During an eclipse, it gets darker and cooler, so we would hear nighttime animals, such as owls and frogs. Let's add speech bubbles and write hoot, ribbit to represent nighttime animals making sounds. And what animals would we hear after an eclipse? Daytime animals. So let's add a speech bubble and write buzz, tweet. What should we add to our explanation? Let's write, when it gets darker and cooler, some animals change their behavior. Great work. We have been exploring the question, what do we observe during a solar eclipse? And we have learned that we can observe changes in light energy, thermal energy, and sound energy. What other questions do you have about solar eclipses? Maybe you wonder, what causes a solar eclipse? Or what blocks sunlight during a solar eclipse? Maybe you've never seen a solar eclipse in person, and you want to know, when does a solar eclipse happen, and where can you see a solar eclipse? I want to know, how do we know when a solar eclipse will happen? And how often do solar eclipses happen? What else do you wonder? Do you wonder, are there other kinds of eclipses? These are all great questions. Your second task after this lesson is to write one additional question you have about solar eclipses. Let's put all of these questions on a chart. We can put them in a section called Unanswered Questions. What title should we give our chart? Do you notice that all of our questions are about how we can explain solar eclipses? So let's call our chart, How Can We Explain a Solar Eclipse? In upcoming lessons, we will work together to investigate some of these questions. To help us, let's think about ways in which solar eclipses are similar to other phenomena we have seen in our lives. Can you think of any other times the sun is blocked from view? What about a storm? During a storm, clouds cover the sun and it gets darker. Oh, and sometimes the sun is behind a building or a tree. Then there is a shady spot where the sun is blocked. Let's add these examples to a new section on our chart called Related Phenomena. Great work today. I am so excited to investigate our questions and find out more about solar eclipses. Let's review your task for today. First, write one example of sound in your everyday life. Second, write one additional question you have about solar eclipses.